Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel where we discuss all things autism and more. I'm Claire and with me is Patricia and Irene. And today we want to continue a discussion that we started in our previous episodes where we're talking about immediate interventions that you can do once you get the diagnosis that your child has autism. What are some immediate things that may not cost you much, but that you can do that will help your child to thrive at home and in their immediate environment? I know the ladies and I were speaking off the camera about some of the things they did and what worked, some that didn't work, but we will share in this short time that we're together and that you're here, what we feel worked best and helped the child or the children thrive and then be able to take on the other more professional interventions. I think when we were talking, somebody was sharing how you got your family involved, and how they supported you and how that was very key in shaping the environment, so that the child's immediate environment. So what are some of those things that you did with the family and how did that help with the child to thrive?
Okay. So for family, of course, I'll talk about from grandparents to siblings to aunties and uncles and everybody around in the life of Yona. Yes, yes. So of course, the family members that I used the most were Yona's siblings. Yeah. So we used to have those play-based therapies where we would involve his siblings. Say, for example, if we wanted him to learn something, like learn an activity or learn, say, just as an example, if you're going to see a dentist, what are you going to do? So we would have those play-based therapies
So cool.
where they would act as doctors. One would act as a doctor, the other one would act as a patient.
Oh, wow.
And interestingly, Yona loved to be the doctor. Always authoritative, always, checking the pressure, checking the weight of the child. So we used that a lot in the therapies that we used to run back home. But even before getting to the therapies, you have to first of all change the setting in your home, create what they call a distraction-free environment. So you're trying to have this place, you can find a room in your house, an appropriate room. You don't have to put in a lot of money. Just get any room. It can be the sitting room, it can be one of the bedrooms, but make it distraction-free.
So why is it important that it is distraction-free?
Because you need to get the child's attention.
And all these things will distract them.
They'll distract them. Maybe they'll keep pulling onto this toy or pulling onto that blanket. So you try as much as possible to clear the environment. And possibly if you want some what they call props or tools to play with, you would put them at a higher level so that they are able to reach out to you to ask for it. Because remember, you're trying to create communication.
Yes, because that's
Yes.
one of their challenges.
Yes, so that was one of the ways. Then the other ways, which of course we learned from the Sunrise program, was to celebrate. We had talked about celebrating every good moment. So that one I had to train the entire family. How to celebrate, how to, go out, all out into celebrating that Yona has been able to do this when he has done something positive. So it didn't matter where he was, whether he was at his grandparents' home or he was at an auntie's home, everybody knew when something good happens, celebrate. So I had to train them in a subtle way, train them on the little things that would count to help him. So those, I think, off mind, off head, those are the things that I remember that we did a lot and they helped quite a bit.
I think I like that about the celebration, because even with some of the children that I work with, even something as simple as saying good boy or good job, they light up. They realize, okay, I get more attention and positive attention when they're celebrated. So I think it's important that everybody around understands, that celebration is important. I also like the bit of the play acting. That is really, really cool, and getting the siblings to, and I know the siblings are younger than Yona, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and yet they were able to take this on, and that is super cool.
And you know, because you're making it a play therapy, it's not like you're subjecting these children into a duty.
Yes.
They enjoy it because it's kind of like a game. So, because of course, it's also hard for you to get a child to do what you want them to do. So you have to make it fun. You have to make it fun. You have to bring games into it, so that they can be part of it, without unknowingly, but when you have your intentions. Yeah.
Okay, that's nice, I think, as well. I think also about the distraction-free environment. I mean, because of the education, I'm a special needs educator, and we try for children on the spectrum to keep even the classroom environment as distraction-free. And now extending that to the home, I think, is also quite something else. I know, Patricia, you were talking about how you, if it was to remove and clear the bedroom, you cleared the bedroom. And yeah, so I think just let us, how did that go? And
So extreme measures. I think I wish I had known you earlier. Because as I mentioned, I did some very drastic and extreme things. And for me, it was, we are all on Harvey's team. So everything that he needs us to change, we shall change. I wasn't very patient in terms of, and I apologize to all the people who are affected by this, by the way. I wasn't very patient in terms of my dealing with everybody else. I would explain, of course, why, for instance, when she talks about the therapy's celebration, for instance, I think if I had put it better in that way, better, it would have been an accomplishment for everybody when Harvey had like reached a milestone or he had done something that he had been struggling with before. We would have owned it, all of us together. But because of how drastic and extreme I was about changing everything at home and not really looking at a gradual process of change, it was, you're either in this thing or you're not, which was a bit extreme and a bit harsh, really. And thankfully, he had no siblings, so no children were really affected. So I can't really relate in terms of dealing with younger siblings and such. So it was really dealing with adults, like, for instance, the nannies and, you know, anyone that was helping us out at home, my family members. I mean, you either could handle the situation or I avoided you. You know, either you could handle the situation or I would avoid you. I wasn't very patient in terms of actually educating many of my family members and friends about my son's condition and saying, listen, this is how we deal with it, and if this happens, this is how we react. I think because I was still also in a process of working on myself, hadn't fully gotten to that place where I was comfortable enough to be vulnerable and say, listen, I haven't figured it all out fully myself, but this is what I have been told works. And I think if I had been a little more vulnerable with them, they would have then been more open and understood where I was coming from. And bless them, of course, they still understood even when I was in the extremist state, but it would have been a lot easier. I think even now, as I loosen the reins on Harvey and let him be with like his cousins, and I'm still very controlling a bit in terms of the spaces he goes to, the people he hangs around, and it has nothing to do with him. That's the funny thing, right? It has nothing to do with him. And I'm speaking this way because Harvey hasn't had siblings for a very, very long time. So the people that I had to manage or I had to work with were the older people. the adults. So it wasn't really like his siblings or the people at home per se. In as far as the people at home, it was the nannies and the help and stuff. But in as far as general community, it was my extended family members. And so of course a disservice to him was that because I didn't have that, I didn't know how to educate and extend grace and all those things that we've mentioned and you've done so well with. I instead kept him away from them. So please don't do that. Thank you, Irene, for sharing, because if you listen to the way Irene did it, it came from a place of compassion and understanding, where you understand that this is your person. Your person belongs to a community. By your person, I mean the child or the adult that has special needs or is on the spectrum. They belong to a community. They belong to a family. And these people are going through the same process, if not even maybe worse, because they have maybe less information, less education. So walking with them as opposed to at them, and like instead of throwing the information at them, going through it together helps you create more community for this child and this person. So yeah.
I think Patricia, what you're saying is actually profound, but I think people fail. I think somebody out there might judge themselves and say, oh, I'm keeping my child away, but we struggle a lot. I've heard of parents who will not take their child to visit, whether it's Jaja or Auntie or Sengagundi, because of the perceptions. And then even telling the parent that you should educate them. There's still a lot of stigma, we have to admit, that is attached to special needs, not just autism, most special needs, there's still stigma. So people already feel very protective of their child, as it were. I think much as there's a place for that, there's also the place for walking the journey and trying to educate them, because then you get a bigger tribe. But I think for me, I'd also come at it from a different way. Even us as friends, as sisters, as aunties, let us extend grace to parents who have children with special needs. I think for me, my heart is in that space. If you go to a space or you visit a friend and the child is what you don't expect, they're not typical, don't start jumping and say, mwana I need dalu. Gundi. No. Also, you compose yourself. What do they say? Pause. Assess the situation. And if you have anything to ask graciously. Don't pass judgments. Don't start labeling the child. Or you say, or comparing them. This child is not talking. They are 4 years old. How come they can't talk? Our African culture is very imposing and very intrusive. We say things carelessly, not knowing. And that's why we talked about you as the parent needing to counsel yourself, to get yourself, because any comment throws you and can even curtail the progress of the child. We need the buy-in of the family. It's an immediate intervention because you have to work. You have many other things to do. Irene, in your case, you had children, other children. So you're not going to quit work. You're not going to stop having a life because you have a child on this. You need the family to support you, but the family also needs to be gracious. And they need, so for me, I think that's my call. It's when you meet a family or a mother or a father, a parent with a child who is not typical, be gracious. Whatever words or things are going through your mind, hold them. Keep it to yourself. If you can have a friend, ask on the side. I don't know, but I'll share an experience, Irene, if you'll allow me. When I started to notice Yona was on the spectrum, I was scared to tell you. So I think I reached out to one of our friends. And she's the one I told. So I tell her, you need to tell Irene about her son. Now she says, no, I'm not going to tell her. So I kept telling her every time. So I'd call her and say, I gave you homework. Have you told Irene about it? Yeah. And I think I've shared this story until one time we were at a party and he reacted. And when he came to me and I held him, I told her, I was mad, I was very cross. I told her, I've been telling you for months, you're not telling her. And I think she'll hear it better from you than from me. I wasn't a mother then, much as I could see, but I wasn't a mother. And I didn't think I was in a position to say it. And some of the things we were noticing, we had noticed with her child. So I knew she could come from that space and tell you, and you would hear. So that was an experience that I can share, that I didn't have to come and tell you, Irene, your child, something's wrong with your child. Take your child, go for, no. and say your child is not talking. Have you seen your child is not talking? Is no, or your child has this.
Yeah.
I was conscious enough to know a parent is, they know it, and parents know the child is not typical. Even them, they are wondering what's going on. So extend them that, okay, it is this, but who can I speak to? Who are they close to? And you can say, not that you're backbiting, but you're solution oriented. I think that's what prevents people finding that's up. Yes, yeah, it really matters. I think that's what, so don't, I'm just saying, Patricia, don't be, I think, hard on yourself on saying you kept the child away. Sometimes you are wary of,
I think you know what's so interesting is even talking about this also shows you that I'm also still going through a process, right? And in the exact same way, I'm still easily triggered by statements or comments. And yet I have done so much work with myself and with my family and everyone around me. But it's still, like you said, it's still a sensitive thing, you know. If my son goes to like for instance, when my son is invited to parties, I am so happy. Like I am so, like, people who invite my son for like social events, I have like a special spot in my heart. And they're like two like two families, but like those things warm my heart because they know my son, they know anything is possible. Okay, at least that's what we are thinking. But they're still, you know, they love him enough to want to include him. And that's when you realize that as a parent, you just want your child to be included, you know, in the community. And even when they get older, you still want them, you still have the same desires that you had when you found out that they had the condition of autism. You still feel the same way even now because you're still a parent. You don't stop being a parent. So I think that's thank you.
And I think one other thing we should tell parents is never apologize for your child. Don't go, maybe they've had a moment and then everybody's looking at you and judging you. Do not apologize for them. That is who your child is. Do not even feel sorry or feel guilty for anything that they've done. You just know that the child is in that moment. You quietly move away from it to help them to come back to their normal selves. But we should never apologize. I actually remember one day we'll invite this mother to this show, Judith, when she said she had taken her child for some activity where they were doing the camel ride, and she enjoyed the ride. I mean, he enjoyed the ride, and he didn't want to get off. He didn't want to get off the camel, and this person kept on saying, "Omwana mujeyo, omwana mujeyo." Then she said, "But I can't. He has refused. What do you want me to do?" Like, she just stayed natural at it. So I think we should not apologize for anything that our children are doing. It is who they are. We just have to handle it in a calm manner.
Yeah. Maybe just saying, not apologize, but sort of seek to address the person who, I mean, not apologizing will can unleash mayhem. People will not want to invite us, I think. So there's a way to handle it, I guess, but not apologizing, oh, forgive my son, da, da. No, it's understand. I think the thing is create awareness in that moment of why the child is doing what they're doing and how we should handle it, yes, in that space. And when we go to visit, I think that's the thing. They're out of their normal environment. It's out of structure. We've talked of distraction free. There's a lot of distraction. It might be a party, there's noise. They are likely to be triggered. There are many people, it's a crowd. They are likely to be triggered, remember? So you can explain, not apologize. I think, let's be clear. Because if a child has destroyed property or has caused some damage or harm, there is a need for you as the adult and the parent to explain, spread the awareness, to manage that damage, yeah? You're not apologizing for the child being who they are, but you're explaining what has happened, I think. I think that's also very important for parents. Don't keep them away. And I think the more we speak about these things, the purpose, the reason the ladies and I decided to start this show is to try and talk about these things. Some are heavy. We are not going to exhaust all the instances, I think, that are there. Yes, let us know in the comments, and then reach out also. Our contacts will be flashing through. Irene and I are at Hannah Center. She runs autism awareness, so reach out to us. If we can't address you, we have connections. We can connect you to people, support groups, and you can get the support and start to work on a journey that will cause your child to thrive. I think something else that we should touch on is, we were talking about it, is creating a structure, just as an immediate intervention, putting the child on a structure. Once you understand yourself, understand the child and their needs, putting them on a structure at home. I think that's also very important. So once you've familiarized the family, friends, then you can create a structure. Previously, we talked about diet, because even that is part of the structure. And children, people on the spectrum, thrive with structure. You start it at home, it carries on into the school. And I think once you've started it at home, it's easier then to build in interventions. Yes. Because your child is already in a structure, you know the child, but that takes a lot. It takes a lot out of the parent, because you have to be present, mentally present. And that's why we talked about managing yourself. If you don't manage yourself, you're not present. You won't know what is needed. So creating a structure. What does a child do? They wake up in the morning, what do? So you've talked about what they're eating, but what are they doing? How are they engaged? How are you keeping them busy? I think that's very, very important for you as a parent with a child on the spectrum to design a home environment with activities that will cause your child to thrive. For me, as an educator, or as somebody who works with children with special needs, and especially children on the spectrum, one of the things that I think the home environment should cater for is use of gadgets. Yeah. I will sing and shout about it. Really, let us limit the use of gadgets. It is, we have phones, there are laptops, there are tabs, there are video games, there's the TV. And the reason we give them, I understand, I'm a parent too, is because it's a good babysitter. It takes them away from that moment. But remember, you're killing that interaction, human interaction, where they will learn to communicate. So we need to remove as much as possible, limit how much screen time or gadget use there is, even for the neurotypicals, but especially for our years.
Can we just pause on that gadget part? Because I'm one of the struggling. No, I'm not a struggling parent on it, but like it was once a thing. My son used to really, really obsess over gadgets. Now, not so much as before. Now it's more like an alternative for awkward situations, but not like the first thing he goes for. And I had to have a hard conversation with myself. I think it's the same as what I told you earlier. Parenting is not easy. Parenting is not easy, and it's not automated. And as a parent, whether you have a child that's on the spectrum or you have a neurotypical child, there comes a time when you have to be a parent. So that means, and I'm speaking to that parent who is telling themselves or has made themselves believe that there's nothing I can do. The only thing that can calm this child down or that can help me in this situation is if I give the child a gadget so that I can have something. Let's be honest. It's the easier route. Being an intentional parent and being an active parent is very tough, because it actually means that you have to put aside whatever you'd rather do in that moment and engage with your child. Yeah. And when I tell you this, I'm not telling you from a place of like, I'm super duper at it, number one engager, with my son. But it is something I had to come to terms with. You either find an alternative activity for your child to partake in, be it maybe sport or reading or something that is of value and interactive, something that will help nurture skills and abilities exactly. So you look at the things that you want to develop in your child and you look for ways to put them in that time that they would have otherwise been on a gadget. It's not easy. It takes consistency. It takes discipline. But what what we find important, I have actually come to learn that as a parent, what you think is important, your child will also give importance to.
That's true.
So if it's important in your family for you to be sports people and say you show up on time, you practice so that when you're doing this activity, that entire process, when you reveal to your child that it's actually important, it automatically becomes important to them. So we have to come to terms with the reality of parenting, which is that we can't escape it. We can't escape it, and we can't give it to you cannot outsource it. That's it.
To the gadget, to the
Yeah. So that was what I just wanted to interject and so it seems difficult in the beginning, but when you come to terms with the fact that it's intentional, being a parent is very intentional and active, then you'll find ways to substitute the gadget addiction.
It looks like I have to have a conversation with myself.
It's a process. The same way I also have to have play therapies with siblings now.
I think it can be challenging because our lives, our modern lives, are very busy. I mean, we are mothers, so let us admit that the mothers long ago were more present. And that is the truth. They were less distracted as well. So maybe we're not as present, and that causes us to put the gadgets. But then also, we have left the children with help. And that is a big thing. Who is around the child? And okay, you've left this list of activities, but remember the help you've left also has other duties. It is easier for them to turn on the TV. Or if you've refused and taken away the TV, they will give them their phone, like a small phone that has little cartoons they'll put on the phone for the child, or play music or whatever. So we need to design activities that engage the child. And I think that's why a lot of when you get the diagnosis, one of the first things the pediatricians will tell you is take the child to play school. Because they're trying to give the child some kind of structure and engagement where they'll get human engagement that's away from a TV is an automaton. If you laugh at it, it doesn't laugh back. It's non-interactive. When you smile, it doesn't smile back. Whether it's a cartoon or whatever, I don't know, Bluey, what are the cartoons today? When you say, oh, Bluey, it's not going to say, hi, John. It's not. It's nice, but it's not interactive.
I hear you.
I think the advice would be that you sit there. If the child must watch the TV, there must be somebody to be the interaction. So that when Blue is dancing, you get up and dance. You tell the child dancing, dance together. If it's Cocomelon on, get up and do the actions. Head, shoulders, knee, whatever. Of course, again, that's requiring you to be present. Yes.
So there's no escape.
There's no escape from that, yeah? So I think it's very important that you put in place a structure of activities, but also failing that, take them to school. Having said that, in the school, will they leave the child alone? You also have to carry on and be present. What is the child doing at the school?
Do you know I have a new formula? After like that 1 million schools Javi has been to. If I bring my son to your school and my level of involvement in his schooling is not high, then I smell a problem. That's what I've realized. The schools which are really good for our kids, they require for parents to also be present, which is quite...
It is good, yeah, because you're the parent, yeah, you know. Irene, I know when you started Yona, he went to, there was a school, I forget its name.
Fun day.
Yes.
Fun day. And luckily, she's my OG.
Yes.
Imagine she still consults me. And she's in another school now, I think it's called Kidsville. But every parent who comes with anything in relation to autism, she refers them back to me. She keeps talking about Yona. So the parent will come to you and talk about, I had them talk about Yona. But basically, this school was very good for Yona because they accepted him, first of all. You remember I had told you earlier, they let him be in the compound until he got comfortable and used to being in the environment. And then later on, he was invited into the classroom. But we would always have the communication. I remember even when we did the diet change, she came to me and told me, no, this boy is losing too much weight. Isn't there any anything else you can do. So that is how interactive it was, and that's how it should be. Whichever school you choose to take your child to, you have to make sure that they accept the child and you work together towards supporting the child.
Yeah. So sometimes a smaller school setting is better if you can afford it, somewhere small where you can interact with the teacher, the head teacher, and spread awareness. And I think schools are becoming more accepting. We've talked about managing yourself. There has to be a place for fun and for having life, because for somebody listening, they might think, hey, this is a life sentence. Now I have to be present. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. Then I have a child with special needs. What about me? Is there a place for it?
There is a place for it, and you must have it. You have to have time to cope, or have time to just rebuild yourself, become whole again. So what are the things that you as Claire or as Patricia love to do? Make time for that. Now remember, we had talked about the family support. We can't do this on our own. You need support. So be ready to ask for it, because you will want that time where you will go and, just relax and enjoy yourself and come back a happy mother. So get the support. Of course, there's a routine and everything, a structure you've put in place. Get people you trust to help you run that for you, as you also take time for you. So I can't really pick on go and do this or go to the spa or go shopping or do whatever, but choose that thing that you love. Choose that thing that will make you happy, that will bring you back as a happy mother. Yes, because that's what your children need, not just for your child with autism, but all your children and even everybody else around you. Yeah.
Rest is spiritual and it's a discipline. Don't wait to get burnt out and then have rest. It needs to be in your system, in your routine. And I learned this the hard way. Think of it this way, if we were to look at it practically. If you spend a whole day without any breaks, you're all over the place. So you're doing this, you're doing that, you're doing this, you're doing that, but you're not really doing anything really well. Whereas if you take a minute to do this thing, you do it well, then you do the next, you do it well, then you give yourself a break. Then you're re-energized to continue doing different things really, really well. That's literally what we are saying.
True.
Because being a parent can get very overwhelming. Being a parent of a special needs child is extra overwhelming. And life is generally happening and it's rolling on. It's not going to tell you, okay, you can take a break now, Patricia. You have to be able to recognize for yourself in the patterns of your life. And I know we sound, sometimes when you're speaking from this side, you can sound like you're insensitive to the fact that maybe someone doesn't have somebody to support for someone who can look after their child, or for someone who, sometimes it's as good as create a structure that is so good for your child that maybe they go to bed early and give you 1 hour when you can just deflate and relax, And I'm speaking to those parents that might not have somebody who can look after their child for like a long enough period for them to like maybe move away from their situation and then come back. Sometimes even in the way you live, you can create spaces of rest within your schedule, within your routine. Another thing, especially for overwhelmed parents, is you really need to look at your priorities. Like, not everything is as important as you think. This is especially for the parents that say, I don't have time to rest. I don't have time to rest. I'm either working or I'm in church or I'm doing this. Really look at your schedule and look at your activities. There are certain things you don't have to do all the time, or that you don't have to do at all. If you're able to delegate, there are those you cannot delegate, especially when it comes to parenting. But what I'm trying to say is it's like growing up, basically. You get to the point where you realize that your time is God's gift to you. It's up to you how you use your time. So look at the way you have been doing things, the things that are making you overwhelmed. Maybe you're not resting enough. If you're not resting enough because you don't think you have enough time, look at the things that you're doing and try and prioritize better. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we'll end on that note that yes, you've received a diagnosis. Yes, you're handling a child on the spectrum, but remember to take time for yourself. And that's the purpose of having family or friends aware that can support you, having a structure for the child so that you too can have a life and a quality life no matter the challenges and the journey that you're on. So thank you again. Go out, find that space for yourself, create that space, share this link, and tune in next time.